Daniel chapter 2. We're going to be looking at a dream by Nebuchadnezzar and the faith of Daniel. Chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, This thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. So Nebuchadnezzar's had a dream that's troubled him, and he's not only demanding an interpretation of the dream, he wants these people to tell him what the dream was, which obviously they can't do. So the word gets out that they're going to take all the wise men, all the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and they're going to kill them. And this would include Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So in verse 14, we'll see Daniel's request. It says, Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house, and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Verse 19, Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So not only is God going to give Daniel the interpretation of this dream, he showed Daniel what the dream was. So he showed him the dream and gives him the interpretation. So jump to verse 24. It says, Therefore Daniel went in at Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon, bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king, and said, The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and thy visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. Okay, so then Daniel finishes telling him what the dream is, and then gives him the interpretation of it. But notice the faith of Daniel. He had faith in God in the face of death to do the impossible, to show him another person's dream and give them the interpretation of it. Faith in the face of death is what Daniel had. Faith in his God, and God delivered him with something that was impossible for any man to do. Only God could do what he did, and that was give Daniel the dream and the interpretation thereof. Now, of course, when this is finished, you're going to see that the king, in verse 48, it says, Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him a ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and the chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So Daniel and his companions there have went from slaves, conquered in battle and taken in captivity, to Babylon, put through this training, and he's elevated to one of the chief rulers under the king himself. So God rewards faithfulness. Now, it's not always in earthly, earthly goods. It's not always worldly things that you're rewarded with. But Daniel was greatly rewarded. And you can go through and read other stories. Look at Joseph. I mean, he was sold into slavery by his own brothers, and then he gets to Egypt, and he becomes the head of the household for Potiphar, and then Potiphar's wife lies on him, and he's cast into prison. He's there for a long time, and God elevates him up to where he becomes what? He can become second in charge of Egypt. And it was through Joseph that the seed of Israel was saved through the great famine. So having faith in the face of death, having faith in the face of fear, having faith in God. No matter what you face, have faith in God that He will see you through. It may not always be the way you wanted to come through that situation, but God will not fail you. Have faith in whatever you're facing today.